Okay, I'm so out of practice. We haven't done this in so long. Welcome back, everybody. This is Valerie, and I'm joined by my sister,
Veronica.
Welcome to Don't Watch at Night, your dedicated spooky little podcast focused on scary movies and scary books of the Spanish language and Latin American variety. Though we do focus on other things as well. We do talk about other things as well from time to time. And we're back. We took the month of June to kind of enjoy summer and be with family and do fun stuff. And now we're back into recording. And Veronica, this month we celebrate 1 full year of recording. Can you believe it?
Woohoo, went fast.
Yeah.
We're all just hurtling towards our death. Time's just like grains of sand through our fingertips.
So what would you say, coming out of a year of having done this, what would you say are some of the takeaways what have you learned? What have you cherished? What have you not cherished?
It's been fun. Certainly we had the chance to watch a lot of movies that I probably would not have checked out just because, and I don't know why, because I don't really have a problem reading subtitles and watching a movie and enjoying it. If it's in a different language, especially Spanish, which I do certainly understand. So I don't know why, up until this podcast, I can't say that I ever really watched a lot of foreign horror films.
Yeah.
But so I've appreciated that doing this podcast has kind of opened that up to me. And actually, I would say I probably prefer the way foreign horror films are done as opposed to like American ones that are just, I don't know.
Yeah,
there's no substance to a lot of the American horror films that come out nowadays.
You've indicated that before, that you kind of appreciate that there's not in all of the horror films we've looked at, but in a lot of them, it's more of like a slower burn. It's more of a build up to the action versus not in all American horror films too, for that matter, but certainly in a lot of the ones of like the 80s and 70s heyday of horror cinema.
Slasher films.
Yeah, you jump right into it. You jump right into the action. So yeah, I mean, from a technical standpoint, I have learned a lot about podcast production in the past year, but it's been a lot of fun. Same, I'm right there with you, looking at films that I wouldn't normally have gravitated toward. And as a matter of fact, this most recent film that we watched for this episode, Netflix started it dubbed, and I was like, no, we're not doing that. Like I can't listen to a dubbed.
See, I thought mine did too, and that's why I didn't know what. It took me like 5 minutes to figure out how to switch it to.
No, but like, yeah, I prefer to watch a movie in its language and then just turn on subtitles. So I've enjoyed it so much. My understanding of the Spanish language is less than Veronica's, but I've been working diligently on it. I'm taking Spanish language, and I took it in high school and college. Like I did that, but that was so long ago. I'm super rusty, and obviously our parents are bilingual, but I am not. I am efforting to be. I understand a lot of what is said to me. I just can't always communicate. So I've been diligently working on my Spanish. I've been roping my kids into that as well, trying to give them that language as well. And so I've really enjoyed being able to watch these movies and dive into this world. So I'm very grateful for it. What else has been going on?
As far as the technical aspects of podcasting, Valerie does all of that, you guys. She does like she set it up. She does the editing afterwards. I do none of that. So I know nothing about the technical side of it. I just show up.
I do not profess to know anything either. I am flying by the seat of my pants, which is how I have gotten
that's
through
kind of our
most
brand. We're just flying by the seat of our pants.
Veronica and I, in the month of June, which I blanked out for a second. We're in the month of July now. Yeah, in the month of June, we took our annual trip. Our families took our annual trip to cabins in hill country of Texas. They're not like roughing it by any means cabins. They're cabins with AC and everything like that. But if you go to this campsite that we go to every year and have been going to for years now with our families, it is giving Camp Crystal Lake energy, summer camp vibes all the way. And so it's such a nice little way to sort of bring us into this next little extra bit that I wanted us to talk about before we launch into any movie talk. Ron, last month during our brief hiatus, we shared on social media an article that kind of talked about summer camp horror movies and why they're so popular, what people love about them. This is certainly a little nugget of horror that I love.
I mean, I think Friday the 13th was kind of one of the big tentpole horror films that I can remember as a teenager watching. I certainly have not watched all of the Friday the 13th franchise.
What would you say, what is it that you like about them? Like for me, it is that element of the woods.
Yeah, I've mentioned before that one of the things I like about any story, doesn't even have to be horror, is just when setting is kind of its own character almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for summer camp settings, that's definitely the rural cabins, the woodsy backdrop, the fact that help is not just within easy reach. And especially back in the heyday of like Friday the 13th, there were no cell phones back then, people. So you were trapped in the woods with a maniacal serial killer. You couldn't just pick up the phone and your cell phone and dial for help. You were on your own.
All it takes is for somebody to cut the phone line and you're screwed. We shared it on social media, but we will, as always, include this stuff in our show notes for you guys and up on our episode blog. There were some interesting things shared in that article talking about when the rise of summer camp movies really took off.
There's some interesting mentions of movies in here that I had not even heard of, so now I'm curious to check them out. Like I have seen Sleepaway Camp, although it's been many, well, it's been decades, let's be honest at this point, since I've seen that. But like this one called The Burning, I've never heard of it.
I had never heard of I've heard of Sleepaway Camp. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. I've never heard of The Burning either. But yeah, so the article does talk, I'm looking at it here, the classic of American slasher formula. All of these things really took off post 1968 after the demise of Hays Code censorship. So that's where we get the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Black Christmas. Did you ever see Black Christmas?
No,
I've heard of that one too.
That's another one I have not heard of.
That came out, both of those came out in 1974. And then obviously we get Halloween, Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Halloween wasn't a summer camp movie.
No, not a summer camp movie, but kind of the birth of that slasher horror that we're talking about. So the Friday the 13th back in the day were panned by critics. This article says that Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert singled it out as notably unpleasant, a notably unpleasant example of the genre, calling it shamelessly bad and nauseating. And, and I'm sure many of these films haven't necessarily aged well, but they've become cornerstones of this particular
cult classics.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for me, I would say I'm in my early 40s, people. For me, my intro into horror was 80s horror. What are your thoughts? 80s horror is the best era of horror?
Well, I can't say that because I've not seen all eras of horror, but certainly that's nostalgic for me. I mean, that's when I was of an age where I was actually starting to partake of that more, wanting to be scared.
Yes.
Not wanting to be scared, but wanting to be scared. Like not wanting the jump scare, but wanting the jump scare.
So yeah,
which was me last night.
My intro, I know, and we'll get to it. We'll talk about it. But my intro into horror in general was 80s horror, a lot of 80s horror. So those are Camp Crystal Lake, Friday the 13th. That's always going to hold a soft spot in my heart as far as summer camp movie. That's what made me love summer camp horror movies. Anything else? How's life? How's everything going? If I'd known that today is your husband's birthday, I might have suggested a different recording day. I forgot. I spaced.
We'll just do
You could have said something.
Because we're going to the movies later. Like after we're done with this podcast, we'll go to a movie. We usually do like a birthday dinner, but we'll just do that maybe tomorrow night. Because like not all the kids are available anyway. The two oldest ones work, have jobs.
What movie are you guys going to go see?
The new Quiet Place.
Ooh, yes.
Prequel? Is it a prequel? No. I mean, Day Zero, whatever. The new Quiet Place. I have seen no spoilers, so do not say anything.
I haven't seen it.
Well, I haven't seen trailers. You watch trailers. I don't watch trailers.
Confession. I've never seen any of the Quiet Place movies.
What?
I haven't. I don't know.
What?
I don't know. Because I don't know. Are they very good?
Yes. Oh my God. Those movies completely stress me out. Like the whole movie, I am just like a ball of tension. There's no, you have to watch those.
Okay. I mean, I'm excited about this recent one or this new one because it's Lupita. It's
Of course, you've probably like seen spoilers, so it's not going to probably hit the
I
same
haven't.
with the same impact.
I haven't seen spoilers because I mean, I haven't seen much about it, but I know it's got Lupita in it. I know it's got the dude from Stranger Things. What's his name?
I don't even know who's in this movie.
Okay. Well, then I won't say anything because I don't want you to have any spoilers.
Like I was assuming it was the original same family, but apparently not. So,
well, because what is it? Is it a prequel?
I don't know. I don't know nothing about this movie. I'm going in completely blind.
The problem with you going in completely blind and then also being a host of a co-host of a horror podcast is that you
get my genuine reaction, like completely, like a baby being born into the world and opening its eyes for the first time. Like it's a true first reaction. I have like no predisposed bias, no predisposed ideas or theories, nothing. It's a clean blank slate. That's what I am. So we are going to be discussing today the movie that we watched, which the original Spanish title is Voces, which is voices in English. I think the English title is Don't Listen. It was a Spanish film that came out in 2020, directed by Angel Gómez Hernández. And this was apparently his debut feature film. Okay. So this is his first big project out of the gate. Screenplay by Santiago Diaz and starring Rodolfo Sanchez as Daniel, Ramón. I don't know if this is Barea or Barea. Barea. So apologies if I mispronounced that. Who plays Germán. Belén Fabra. I always like that name, Belén.
I love Fabra. Belén. Yes, if I had ever had a daughter, I really like that name, Belén.
Belén, it's pretty.
Yeah.
Belén Fabra as Sarah, Ana Fernández as Ruth, who reminds me of somebody, and I don't know who she reminds me of, but somebody. And Lucas Blas as Eric.
Wait. Slow down. Ruth. Ruth is the daughter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
She didn't make me think of anybody.
Somebody, I don't know. Maybe kind of Anna Faris, but
okay.
Okay. And I could not find a really good synopsis descriptor of this movie. The one that's in IMDb, which is really the only one I found, is kind of bland, but I'll read it anyway. Daniel and Sarah have a 9-year-old son, Eric, and they've just moved to a new home, not knowing the neighbors call it the House of the Voices. Eric is the first one to notice the odd noises behind each door. That's what we watched. It's showing on Netflix, and again, just as a warning, we will be doing spoilers.
Yes.
So if you haven't watched this movie, hit the pause button, go watch it, come back and join us when you've seen it. Otherwise, you've been warned. We will be spoiling.
And find us on social media because we announce this stuff up front so that you can go into these episodes hopefully having already watched it.
Valerie, what were your initial impressions? Did you watch the trailer before? Because again, I did not watch anything. I didn't know anything about this movie before I started, but did you watch the trailer?
I did watch the trailer, but I don't remember anything about it. I do remember that it appealed to me. Like it was just like, oh, this looks interesting. It's nice and eerie, but I don't remember nothing jumped out to me.
So did you find this movie just by, you're scrolling through Netflix, or you found an article about it, or how did you come across it to pick it for our podcast?
I honestly do not remember because
we got old brains, people.
I do have old brain, but it was between this one. When I messaged you, it was between this one and one other one, and I said this one is intriguing me more. Let's go with this one. I think I just did a search for. I was really trying to find summer camp Spanish horror movies. And guys, if you know of some, please tell us because we are in summer. It would be a shame not to try to hit something up in that little niche of this genre. But anyway,
yeah,
I enjoyed it a lot on a scale of like not scary at all, nice and spooky, very scary. This was like the first movie that we've watched in a while where I was just like, like you guys can't see me, but like holding up my face or blocking my eyes, but looking through at the screen because it was. This is the kind of movie that were I to see it in theaters, it would be intensely scary for me. But I don't know. How did you feel about it?
I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, I knew nothing about this movie. I didn't know nothing. Like I knew nothing. So, but it had quite a few jump scares. In fact, I was watching this movie last night and I was sitting on the couch and our dog was next to me. And there was one part where I just it wasn't a scream, but I shouted out loud and Coda he waited like half a beat and then he slunk off the couch and left the room.
He's like, what is the matter with you?
He's like, you're crazy. I'm out of here. But it had several jump scares. So I screamed out once, and then but there was a lot of jumping, and like you, Valerie, watching through my fingertips and watching through my fingers, and a lot of like, don't go in there. Why are you going in there? Like, don't do that.
Yes.
I will say, characters in horror movies, they've got like zero survival skills. If you're hearing voices, or you're seeing things that cannot, realistically be there.
Exactly.
Why you gotta go investigate by yourself?
And like at a certain point in the movie, after you've already established that, things are going down, and then you're still falling for this trap that's being laid for you. It's like, come on, man. But we'll talk about that more.
Yeah. And in all honesty, I'm just joking, because if characters in horror movies had any kind of common sense or survival skills, there would be no movie.
There would be no movie.
It would be like 5 minutes on. They'd hear the noises. Oh, we're gone, and then cue credits.
Did you feel like this movie was giving essences of other notable horror movies of modern day times, like The Conjuring?
My initial thought when I was watching it was like Haunting of Hill House. So I was kind of like looking for those kind of similar plot twists. And I will say this movie had a couple of plot twists. It took a couple of turns where it went left and I thought it was going to go right. So I liked that, because I like being surprised. No one likes to predict the movie right step by step. And we'll talk about what those twists were that caught me by surprise. And I did have some initial theories, and one initial theory that did not pan out also. So that was nice.
Did you, and we'll get to this obviously as we go through the movie, but I just want to ask you up front, because once again, this is not the first time that I've done this. I need to watch movies all the way. I need to watch all the way through the credits. But did you watch the scene post credits that I didn't know was there till I read about it? Okay. Then you'll walk us through what that is, because I, of course, didn't watch it. I was just like, okay, the movie's over. One thing that I wanted to note, I don't know if you pay attention to the music in movies, Ron. Do you get really focused on musical scoring?
I do. I did not. I know one of the articles that you have put in the show notes, the author of the article mentions the music and how she liked it so much she went and downloaded it all. I did not pay attention to the music.
See, I did. Even pre-reading that. Go back and look at it again, because like the music right off the bat was what caught me, and we'll discuss it as we go through it. But that opening shot of the film and the eerie music that's playing with it grabbed me right away. And so,
see, like there's some horror music that you have to notice it. Like, of course, the theme for Halloween or Friday the 13th. It's very iconic now, but this one, I can't say that I noticed it at all. So I will go back and look at it, because I was curious reading that article.
Yeah, no, I noticed it right away. It was very eerie. It was effectively used in the moments where there's tension building and jump scares and stuff like that. That article that Ronnie's talking about, the musical scoring, I think is attributed to someone named Jesus Diaz. So, we'll, like we said, we'll include that link for you guys. But yeah, by the end of this movie, I was texting Ronnie. I texted her, I just stress ate Doritos. I'm emotionally upset right now. So really, really good fun scare. So
we open
it's an aerial shot of the pool, right?
Mm-hmm. Like a
very dirty pool.
Dirty pool. Like it's not, because
it's like wintertime.
It's like wintertime. I'm assuming it's kind of like a gray landscape, but the pool's murky. The water's brown. There's like a red ball floating in it in this aerial shot. And then it kind of pans down and we see a man using a pool tool to scoop the ball out. The ball belongs to his son. And like right away, I'm thinking, okay, at some point in this movie, somebody's drowning in this pool.
Yeah, I felt
not who I thought was going to be, but
it didn't necessarily register with me then at the time. But yeah, post watching the movie, I was just like, yeah, that was obviously very, very informative right off the bat. This pool's going to feature later.
Yeah. So. I even wrote that down as the scene was playing. Someone is going to drown in it.
It's like Chekhov's gun, but it's like Chekhov's swimming pool.
So he's fishing the ball out of the pool, and then it moves into this big house. Like it's a huge house. It's kind of out in the country-ish, it looks like. And we see a little boy holding his toy robot, sitting on his bed. There's a lady speaking to him. It becomes pretty clear fairly quickly that by the question she's asking him that she's some kind of mental health professional. She's asking him, or the little boy at some point tells her that he hears voices that tell him to draw things. And she's trying to probe, what are these voices? What are they telling you? And the little boy says he can't tell her. He can't share that. Then it cuts to the mental health professional, doctor, whoever, I don't know if she's a psychiatrist or psychologist. She's leaving the house. She's talking to the parents, and we learn in their little exchange that the parents, they're house flippers, basically. They buy
Yes.
old homes, they renovate them, and then they sell them for profit. And they kind of
Yes.
live in the home as they're working on it. Kind of like Hill House. Wasn't that what they were doing in Haunting of Hill House too?
Yeah, they were basically flipping that huge manor.
Now, this seems like a huge house for like this one man to flip. But anyway,
Interesting concept. Like, what do you do if you're flipping a haunted house?
and the mental health professional is telling them, oh, he just has a very vivid imagination, and maybe it's just, this is kind of a product of
moving around so
the
much.
instability of the way you live your life, kind of moving around. So he doesn't really have time to put in roots to make friends. And as soon as he's made friends, he's got to go. So So she gets in her car, she's driving away, and then the action is kind of panning between her driving off these winding
roads,
winding country roads,
going at a speed you feel like unsafe.
And the little boy's back in his room, and he's drawing pictures and furiously drawing a picture, which we can't tell exactly what it is. And in the car with the doctor, she's fiddling with her radio because her radio's kind of,
it's like staticking out.
Yeah.
And
so she's messing with it, and there's a fly in the car. She's trying to wave away. The fly goes into her ear, which just, I'm like, pull the car over, lady.
Stop the car. Yeah.
Pull the car over to the side and deal with this.
Deal with the situation.
But the fly's in her ear. All of a sudden, her eyes are just like turning bloodshot red.
Right. Yeah.
She runs the car off the road into a tree, and a branch just like basically
impales her
through her mouth. Which, would you die? Because it seemed like it would miss her brain.
I don't know,
maybe it disconnected her brainstem. I don't know.
It's a pretty painful way to go.
She doesn't survive.
She does not survive. What did you think at that point? Wait, hang on. So what did you think at that point? Because at that point, I was just like, ooh, that's nice and grisly. This is what we're in for. This is
that's probably actually the most grisly
of the horror movies we've watched so far. Yeah.
No, but it was a pretty gnarly way to do it. But my first thought was like, would you die from that? She does. Yes. And pan back to the boy's room. We see his completed picture, which is a picture of a bloody tree limb.
Yes.
So he's basically drew her manner of death before it even happened.
Right. And prior to all that, I didn't notice it until I went back and looked at the film a second time. So prior to all that, post pull shot, opening shot, we do also, mentioning the flies, we do also have a shot of the father, Daniel, dealing with a wall in the house that clearly has like a fly infestation situation going on, which again,
like a hole in the wall
that should be a tip off right then, is like, for me, flies suggest decay, rot, something is amiss.
Maybe the Amityville horror movie doesn't exist in their universe.
In this realm, yes.
Did you have any initial theories at this point in the game? Or were you just kind of still taking it in?
I was still taking it in. I obviously, I picked up on the fact that he drew that kind of foretelling of what was to come, but I didn't necessarily think anything of that. I honestly had expected that woman, that mental health professional, to have more of a role. I was like, well, goodbye.
I thought she'd be back.
Goodbye, ma'am. That's it for you. So then we go. I don't know if I'm necessarily getting this in the right order, but there's the bathtub scene where he's in the bathtub. His mom comes in to kind of talk to him and bathe him, whatever. And that's where we kind of learn, I don't know if this is the first time we learn it, but this is where I kind of remember learning it, that the voices he's hearing on the walkie-talkie are voices he believes to be his father's. Or is that disclosed when he's talking to the mental health woman?
No.
Yeah. So he believes him to be his father, at least.
Because he asks his mother, does dad really hate me?
Yes.
So the voices apparently are not. We can't ever really, or I couldn't anyway, make out what the voices were saying.
I know. Yeah. I kept like turning it up. I'm like, what is it? But you're not meant to necessarily understand what they're saying. So you do, like we said, there are a decent amount of jump scares in this film. One of the first is that first night. So, that happens that night. They're in bed. The father wakes up to go deal with the pull gate that's been left unlatched, and it's swinging back and forth. And when he comes back in the house, he thinks he hears his son's voice on the walkie-talkie. Meanwhile, his son is upstairs dealing with like the toys that are turning on by themselves. And that is where we get, Veronica, the first sighting of like the little boy's looking underneath his bed or something like that. And there's these gross bare feet of something in the room with him, and he sees the shadow of something behind the plastic tarp that's in his room. So we're hearing the buzzing of flies. Flies are, like we said, they're present throughout this movie. Back to the boy in the room. He's hiding in his bed because he's seen the gross old feet and he's seen this being behind the tarp. We don't know what it is. And so he throws his sheet over his head, which I don't know what the hell that's supposed to do, child, but I mean, I guess I understand the impulse. And it really heightens the tension for us because we as the audience can't see either what's going on. So it was very
take
terrifying.
That off, I can't see what's happening.
It was very terrifying, but nothing happens. I think, isn't that the scene where his father comes in and like pulls the sheet off? But it's a jump scare because you're just like, what the hell's happening? What's going to happen? And this is just his father coming to uncover him and be like, what's going on? Chill out. The next morning, we find out that the son has been suspended from school. He had some kind of altercation, so his mother had to go pick them up and deal with that.
Yeah, I didn't really get the point of that for the story.
Yeah. I do want a small note that I wrote that I really like the wallpaper of this house. What did you think of the house in general?
Well, again, I thought it was just like way too big for, like, you need a team of people to renovate this house if it's just going to be this one man. Because it didn't seem like the wife was really involved in the renovation part of it. It seemed like that was just the husband's role.
Thing.
And I was like, this is going to take you forever to do this big old house. And then my other thought was, in this big old house, it's completely empty. Why do you have your kid in a bedroom so far away?
Where is his bedroom in relation to where they're sleeping?
It was down a lot of stairs, apparently, from what it seemed to me.
Yeah. So yeah. The father, post the kid getting suspended, he gets sent up into his room. The father comes to visit the son in his room after the suspension. He brings him food and he's trying to comfort him. And he's asking, hey, who were you talking to on the walkie-talkie last night? And the little boy says, well, you. I was talking to you that night. Oh, yeah. So this is all this is where we like it starts happening very quickly. Isn't it that exact night that the little boy? Yeah. We see the little boy listening to the walkie-talkie and frantically drawing. And this is like 3:00 in the morning, like an ungodly hour to be awake and doing stuff. So he's drawing frantically. And then we then see in the parents' bedroom that the father has to get up again because once again, this stupid pull gate
has opened.
Nobody can figure out how to secure that latch. So it's swinging open in
Actually,
the breeze.
it's the wife, the mom wakes up.
That's right.
And hears it and wakes him up. And then he goes.
So he goes downstairs to see that the front door is wide open. And so he's just like, holy hell, how long has this been open? He grabbed a shotgun, right? And he's just sort of slowly trying to investigate. While this is happening, the mother is upstairs. She's been roused awake. She gets up. She goes to check on her son, Eric, and she realizes that he's not in his bed anywhere and he's just somewhere out and about. So at this same time, the father then finds part of the son's pajamas out on the stairs. And so he realizes that Eric has potentially been taken. So he starts freaking out and he starts running and hollering for the little boy, only to then realize, oh my God, the pool. He goes running to the pool. And sure enough, he comes across his little boy's lifeless body face down in the pools. And it's too late. Like at that point, he pulls his son's body from the pool and Eric is gone. It's just, and that happens like within the first, I don't know, 20 minutes of the film. Like it's quick.
if even that.
Yeah.
And this was the first time where the movie took a turn that I wasn't expecting, because I thought that this was my early theory. I thought the boy was going to be kind of like our Carol Ann of the piece, Carol Ann, a reference to Poltergeist.
Yes.
I thought he was going to be kind of like our central figure that was going to be kind of experiencing all this paranormal phenomenon, and we'd kind of go through it with him. And my early theory was that those like rotted, disgusting feet that he was seeing every time he looked under the bed was like his father. Like somehow his father was going to die and this was his father. I'm still thinking, like, I'm trying to anticipate like Haunting of Hill House.
Okay.
Reasoning and logic here. So that was my early theory. So yeah, when the little boy ended up drowned in the first 15-20 minutes of the movie, I was like, okay, well, this totally is not going to go where I
still had no theories. Man, I'm like a little goldfish watching movies. I'm like, wait.
So I was like, dang, the little boy drowned. I thought he was going to be like the central piece throughout this.
I know. Yeah. I was just like, well, damn. So then we get a couple of like really gut wrenching scenes. The funeral, the actress who plays his mother, Belén?
Well, that's her real name. Her character name is Sarah.
Sarah, I thought fantastic job in those moments, those moments of grief when they're coming back from the funeral and she's back in the house where her son was.
She's packing up because she's going to go stay with her parents,
which is the decision that I feel like everyone should have made. And I understand if you don't make it, there's no movie, but it's like everyone should have left the house at that point.
She's saying, that she can't live in this house, but the reality is that they've sunk all their money into this house, so they can't.
They can't walk away.
They can't just walk away.
Right.
And so the husband decides that he's going to stay and continue to work on the house. And they kind of leave in a not good place because he's upset that she thinks that it's just easy to just pick up and move and move. And it's not. And so I don't know if it was later that night or maybe the next day, he sends her a voice note, saying, hey, I'm sorry about the way we left things. I love you. Then later that night, the wife calls, or maybe it's the next day again. I don't have a good sense of time for this movie, but calls to say, hey, are you okay? Because I heard your voice message and it sounded like screaming in the background. So I just wanted to make sure you're okay.
Yes.
When he goes to listen to it, and, through technology that I probably do not understand at all, he is able to amplify that scream. And what he hears is, or what he thinks he hears is the voice of his son calling for help.
Okay, consider this commercial break, Val. I'm coming in about halfway through this episode with a PSA, if you will. It's a reminder that Ron and I are going to be at the Texas Haunters Convention July 13th and 14th in Mesquite, Texas. We'll be at this thing, having the time of our lives, being with a bunch of weirdos who love Halloween and haunts just like we do, and you can be there too. Head over to TexasHauntersConvention.com and get your tickets. Be sure to use Sister24 at checkout for your discount and come see us. Wear something spooky or don't. I'm not trying to tell you what to wear, but I am telling you, you should come join us. Okay, bye. I do definitely understand the need to stay behind because of financial reasons, but yeah, the impulse to want to leave the house immediately, totally understand that, and you just sort of wish that he would have gone along with her. But yes, so he hears this voice, he freaks out, he goes off to meet with this famous EVP expert. I don't know. I forget what that stands for.
Electronic
voice phenomenon? I don't know.
Paranormal stuff.
The paranormal people, and famous book author, and so we'll just call him the investigator, paranormal investigator.
Who conveniently is having a book signing in town.
Yes. So he pleads for help, and the old man shows up to Daniel's house with his daughter Ruth in tow, and she's, as Ronnie said, she's the skeptic. She doesn't necessarily believe all this stuff, but she's a good daughter. She's willing to help out her father. So she's assisting him kind of as like his sound engineer, setting up all the equipment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't take them long before they realize there is actual spirit activity in the house. I don't know is there anything in particular you wanted to say about those scenes?
Well, so she's watching, she's got these multiple monitors and she's watching, and her father is moving around the house with, a microphone or whatever tech gadgets they have to pick up
equipment, and whatever.
Phenomenal sounds, not phenomenal.
That's gonna be
supernatural
Veronica.
Sounds.
That's gonna be Veronica's in my side hustle. We're gonna be paranormal investigators.
So he's moving through. He gets to the little boys' room and he's in there, and the daughter back in the control command center. She flicks the cameras to infrared cameras, and then she sees that there's a thermal heat signature in there with her father. Mm-hmm. And she's like, she thinks it's Daniel, so she's telling her dad, can you tell Daniel to? Or actually, no. I don't remember if the signature was in the same room with her dad, or he was in a different room. But anyway, she thinks it's Daniel. She tells her dad, can you tell Daniel to get out of here? Because he's messing up. He's interfering.
He's interfering with
her dad walks to the window and clearly sees that Daniel's sitting outside on a bench. He's not in the house. So he goes into the room where the thermal signature is showing. The daughter toggles back to just regular camera view, and there's nothing visible through the naked eye, but the thermal heat signature is definitely there. So
there's lots. So moments like that, moments where Ruth is first setting, and this is, in my opinion, straight out of The Conjuring, but moments where there's a shot where Ruth is setting up her camera. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at the scene via the camera. So she's setting up the equipment. She's setting up the camera. She steps away, and what we see behind her is the entity. She doesn't see it, obviously. And then when she steps back in, she's messing with the camera. And when she moves again, the entity is gone. So very, very reminiscent of The Conjuring, in my opinion. Really, really good. During this time, is this when Sarah, the mother, has she's on her way back because she receives a phone call
Mm-hmm.
or a voice message or something where what she believes is the voice of her son, of Eric,
Mm-hmm.
asking her to come help because he says something to the effect of the man that
Dad got
has brought to the house is out to get him or something to that effect. And come and find me. I'm hiding under the bed, blah, blah, blah. And so she comes back for that purpose to get her son or whatnot. So she's at this point, I'm getting timelines crossed too, but I believe she's back. She's shown back up to go look for her son. So she ends up in the room, and this is where she sees the old. At this point, I think we've established that this is an old woman, because I think maybe in the shots where we see the entity when Ruth is setting up the camera, I think we get the sense that this is an old woman. But if not,
it's kind of hard to tell because it's like a very disheveled, long hair. I mean, it could have been,
and we never get a good look.
Yeah,
we never get a good look at it. And I'll speak to that frustration later. She sees the old disgusting feet beneath the bed, same as her son did. And those were some really tense. That was a really tense, jump scare-ish moment too, because like the camera shows her looking down. She sees the feet. She looks up above the bed. There's nothing there. She does that several times. And
it was like, when the feet crawled onto the bed that I was like, oh
yes, no. I was just like, get out of the room.
And here's my thing. Okay, even if for an infinitesimal minute you your son's dead, okay, but I understand grief, and so your biggest wish is to see your loved one. But if you're feeling, because she was clearly terrified just by the look on her face, the way she was breathing, if you're feeling that much fear, then it can't possibly be your loved one, right? Because
something's not right.
Something's not right. Get out of there, because you wouldn't be afraid of your loved one.
I mean, that's totally true. One day, guys, when Veronica and I start our Patreon, and we will, it's going to happen, but there's all sorts of things that we could share related to that, because I've had my own experiences with that as well. Feeling that I am experiencing something, but also cognizant of the fact that I'm really terrified while it's happening. And I'm thinking, well, this can't be my loved one, because I wouldn't be this scared. So the next thing we know, a hand reaches over her face. She's attacked by whatever it is, and that's it. So then we cut to, where do we cut to?
Whatever room the three other Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel has joined the investigator. What's his name? German.
Looks like German, but German.
And Ruth. He's joined them in that other room. They're talking amongst themselves. Something's going on here. There's definitely activity here. Suddenly, the next thing we know, Sarah's body comes crashing through the window. She has apparently hung herself from up on high and has just come swinging through. Here's my question. In relation to that scene, and by the way, what did you think of that? Like, now this man has lost not just his son, but his wife. Were you prepared for that? Did you see that coming? No,
I did not see that coming. What I wasn't sure of was it suicide, or did that malevolent entity murder her, basically? So at this point I wasn't yet clear.
See, I took it as like it was the malevolent entity. Later on, we'll find out specifically where I think both are true, where you're not necessarily wrong on that. But I was thinking it was the malevolent entity, because it's just the violent nature in which it happened. I was just like, wow, she strung her up and threw her
And the
off.
camera pans in for a minute or makes a point to have us notice that there's like a shard of glass stuck in
her leg. That's right.
Her ankle, which at the time I was like, okay, I don't know what this means, but clearly
that's right. That's right.
File it away, file it in your brain, because it's going to come up again.
So here's my question, because what happens next? Is that when we get the cats scene? When does the cats scene happen? Do you remember the cats? And then I guess you can tell the audience about
that was right before the mom comes back, because remember, they're burying the cats and she sees.
That's right. Okay, so back up and tell people about the cats.
So
we forgot that.
Who was it that saw it? God, I just saw this movie last night. I think was it Daniel that saw it, or
Ruth? I thought.
Was it Ruth?
Maybe it's Edmond. Is Edmond?
No, I think it was Ruth. German? Now that you say it, I think it was Ruth.
Okay.
I think she'd gone outside. I think she'd gone outside to smoke or whatever, and she's walking around the grounds, and she comes across this tree that just has all these cats hung from their necks, all over from the branches.
These cats, like domestic house cats. Like,
and they're probably wild cats because it's out there in the country-ish. Yeah. That's what German and Ruth were showing Daniel in the room.
And he says,
before Sarah hung herself and came crashing through the windows, he's showing him the picture of like an old drawing from like some old textbook saying,
This
I
was
knew I'd seen this before. This is a sign
it was a
that she's
way
near, or that you're in her territory.
it was apparently
A
a
witch.
way of for a witch to show, I guess maybe potentially another witch entering her territory, that like you're in my territory. So it's kind of like peeing on a tree, but with dead cats.
That's what they were talking about when Sarah came crashing through the window.
Yes. And so
at the end of a rope.
From there, we're coming into like the third act of the film. How I don't remember, and you saw this just last night. I saw this earlier this week. But is it through that the cats that we come to determine that the house is haunted by? How do we determine that the house is haunted by, spoiler, a witch who was persecuted during the days of the Spanish Inquisition? When does that come to light?
It kind of, from what I can remember, having just seen it last night, it's part through Germán's research, because he's looking through, and it was kind of nebulous, I will say, and this was one of my points with the movie, is it was kind of like a nebulous connection.
Okay.
And then there's also a point where Ruth was in town. I forget what she'd gone into town for.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And she's walking, and there's like a creepy little, not creepy, but a suspicious looking woman like whispering at her through an open door.
Like, come here. And you're like, no.
And of course she goes. Of course she goes, because of course. And we don't really see that conversation happen, but when she comes back to the house, she basically relays that apparently this house is known for voices that tell you what you want to hear, or that know what you're thinking and insidiously get inside your head.
Yes. And so we do come to realize that this witch, it's kind of determined that the person haunting the place is a witch who was, like I said, persecuted in the days of the Spanish Inquisition, executed, what have you, that she can assume any form in order to lure her victims. We now know, because his mother has just been hung, that she was, I don't know if they know, but we know, we put it together, that his mother was lured back by this entity, talking on the phone, pretending to be Eric. There's also that scene where the witch presents herself to Germán as his dead wife, nearly had him slicing his own wrists open, and because she's like, come and be with me, come and join me, it's time. And so he's doing that. Thankfully his daughter rushes in and stops him and prevents and saves him. He puts it together, Germán puts it together that the witch's body, again, how does this happen? How does he put it together that her body must be there on site and they have to find it?
Because apparently part of the information that suspicious lady in town told Ruth was that house used to be part of a court. And then it was like a light bulb went off for Germán, and goes, the court, of course, the Inquisition. And so then he's doing research and saying that they must be, the victims that died there must all be somewhere underground, underneath. And of course, then Daniel was like, aha,
he puts
exactly
it together.
How to get in there. It's through that hole in the wall where the flies are coming out.
So the father puts it together that the witch's body must be in that area. They go there. They kind of uncover this lower dungeon level where the body of the witch is lying in a cage. And something terrible has been done to her mouth. And the investigator, Germán, explains that it's how they would have punished people who were accused of like lying or blasphemy or something like that.
Because the punishment always fit whatever your crime was. And so if you were accused of like treason or blasphemy or, and I was curious if that tool that they used, was that like a real torture device that was used back then?
Well, so
I have no idea how to find that out. I'm afraid to Google it.
Well, so we're going to talk about that after we wrap up film discussion, because I did some digging.
Okay.
That was the thing that I morbidly wanted to get a closer shot of her face so that I could see what they did to her. And
I know. I was like, what did they do
see.
to her? It just looked like it was wide open, but
now I'm just like, well, damn, I kind of want to see that.
I will say, for being untouched for hundreds and hundreds of years, if this torture dungeon has been around since the Spanish Inquisition, it was pretty well preserved, I have to say. I mean, there are a few cobwebs sprung about, but other than that, it's pretty well preserved.
Yeah, they come to the realization that the only way they can truly end her terror is to burn her. The investigators like, to kill a witch, you must burn her. And it seems like an easy enough task.
You would think, right? She'd be able to do it in like 5 minutes.
But in preparation for that, we get the witch pulling her trickery all over again, and these people falling for it all over again. So the father, Daniel, sees a vision. He's in the garage getting more lighter fluid or something. I think they've already dumped some lighter fluid on the witch or something, but he went to go get more because they're going to burn the whole place down perhaps. He sees Sarah in the garage holding their son, And I mean, I don't even remember, like, somehow he falls for that. While that's happening upstairs, Ruth is seeing a vision of her mother, her dead mother, who, I guess this is a mother who like took her own life at some point.
Yeah, we slowly kind of find, apparently, or we get the gist that she also committed suicide.
Yes.
Or that her death was somehow, there's questions around it that
Yeah.
Ruth has never really had full answers to.
Yeah, because you get the vibe that maybe this happened when she was very young, and so she just doesn't have that knowledge base to come from. But anyway, so this is happening simultaneously. In addition to downstairs in the dungeon, I think Germán is having to fight off the actual witch, or he's getting, because I get the sense that he's like a seer, so he's getting flashbacks of what actually happened to this woman when she was executed back in the whatever hundreds of the actual Inquisition, the days of the actual Inquisition. So he's seeing in flashbacks all of what happened to this woman, how they tortured her, what they did to her mouth, all of that stuff. So all that's going on. And yeah.
The whole time I'm just like, throw a damn match on it. It's like, why are you taking so long?
So Daniel, like the witch is able to kind of overpower Daniel, and he starts like pouring gasoline on himself, and you get the sense that he's going to light himself on fire so that he can go and join his wife and son. Ruth shows up in the dungeon. She's got the same bloodshot eyes, so we know that the witch has overtaken her as well, and she stabs her father in the gut. Thankfully, he has the impulse to like knock her in the head with the butt of his shotgun and like knock her out, and he fires off a shot into the witch's body in the cage and ignites the thing. So in those moments,
Which
the
breaks
spell breaks the spell. So Daniel kind of comes to and realizes what he's about to do, and he stops. I don't know, thoughts on all that?
Well, I was like, and this again, it's like, where are these people's survival instincts? Because so Germán and Daniel are trying to get the gasoline. They find one can. Daniel says, or Germán says, there's not enough, we need more. So Daniel's going to go look for more flammable things, fluids. And Germán, for some reason, even though he's already said this is not enough gas, goes down into the dungeon by himself, tells his daughter to, wait up top. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, leave this house. But I'm like, why are you people all splitting up? That's the number one rule, do not split up.
It's like, do we need that? What is that accomplishing, sir?
So yeah, my whole point is like, oh my God, where's Daniel? Why is it taking so long? It was like, it's one little job, douse it and light it. It shouldn't take this freaking long. I was totally stressed out.
So that happens. They're able to burn the witch down. And so then they make it through the night. And so then in these closing moments
why are you not at a hospital? Your dad, you stabbed your dad, which thankfully does not seem to have any memory of doing. But I'm like, go to a hospital. Why are y'all still in this damn house?
It's time to effectively leave this house, people.
Yes.
Burn it to the ground and go.
Ruth has bandaged up her dad. He's waking up, and Ruth is coming to check on him. They're talking about, got to get you to a hospital, blah, blah, blah. He's talking about, before we came on this trip, I got an email from somebody about a girl who's possessed, and they're asking for help. And Ruth's like, Dad, you need to heal. I need a week's vacation. So let's back burner that kind of thing.
Yeah. But you get the sense that they're going to be okay.
Yeah, they're going to be okay. Yeah. Which I was glad, because I did not want Germán to die. I was very upset.
I was
very upset when he got stabbed. Then we flash upstairs to Daniel, who's sitting in Eric's room, his son's room. He looks like he's had
been through hell.
Yeah. A horrendous few days. He suddenly notices all the pictures that his son has drew when he was alive. He starts to pull them down, and you can see in his brain the wheels turning, and he's putting it all together, and we're seeing the pictures that he's drawn. Everything that's happened up to this point in the movie, he drew before it happened. He drew the psychiatrist's death with the bloody twig. There's a picture of where he drew of his mother hanging. Or no, it's a picture of just the foot with or actually, was it her whole body? But anyway, the important thing is that there was a picture of the shard of glass in the ankle.
Which you caught.
Which was that shot that they showed earlier.
The hanging cats.
The hanging cats. So like just all sorts of things that have already happened in the movie.
That he wouldn't have known because he was already. Yeah. So like because this was all he even died. Pre his death. Yeah.
Then he starts walking out of the house. He has like this horrified, stunned expression on his face. He walks out to the pool, and as he's walking, he's kind of piecing it all together, and the movie is showing us this by showing us little flashbacks of things that have happened already, which is, when the mom came back, she noticed like a little drop of dried blood on his pillow, which didn't register, or I didn't attach any significance to that. but that's a sign that the night that Eric drowned in the
Drowned.
pool, the fly got into the dad. Dad's sleeping. The fly got
Uh-huh.
into his ear, took over, possessed him, whatever you want to
So you
call
see
it.
him open his
So
eyes,
you
his
see
eyes
him
go
open his eyes.
bloodshot.
He gets up. He goes. And this is all, these back flashbacks are all intermingled with Dad currently walking in a horrified expression towards the pool. And we find out that what actually happened that night was that possessed Dad took Eric, who's screaming, poor kid, screaming the whole way, and drowns him in the
Yes.
pool. And so
And
this
And we're
shocking
seeing, as we're
revelation.
learning that, we're also seeing the drawing that the kid drew of
Mhm.
this happening, of him being drowned by his father,
Yeah.
which is horrible.
Once
Yes.
he's made this realization that he was the one who drowned his son, he takes the shotgun,
He
puts
can't
it
live with
under his
himself. Yes.
puts it under his chin and shoots himself.
Yes.
Falls into the pool.
And as that's happening, we see again a shot of the final drawing that the kid drew on the floor of the father taking his own life. So it all comes full circle, and it's just, and the eerie music is coming in as Ruth is running out to the pool because she heard the gunshot, and so
Mhm.
you're now closing on the same shot you opened the movie with,
Mhm.
aerial shot of the pool, only now there's a man floating face down with blood surrounding him, and we cut to black. What did you think? What did you think of that? Did you see that coming?
No, that was the other place. I said there were two places where the plot twist that kind of took me by surprise was that revelation that it was actually the dad that had drowned his son. Not knowing, of course, it wasn't really him, but
because like at the
tragic.
beginning of the movie, I had wondered if maybe the dad was going to be involved because of how much the little boy was talking about his father and unpleasant things that he claimed he was hearing his father say and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I was just thinking, okay, maybe this is going to be like Amityville Horror, and the father just like loses it and tries to murder his family. So then, because of the way the movie progresses, you're kind of you kind of genuinely buy this man's innocent. I mean, he is, as far as he knows, he's an innocent man, grief stricken, just trying to figure out what the hell happened to his kid.
Mhm.
And so then that end, I was just like, holy crap. And then he takes his own, it's just so jarring and upsetting. And then they just end the movie. And I was just like,
Yeah, basically this whole little family got wiped out.
Yes. And don't skip on this. So in that closing scene where he puts the gun to under his chin and is about to pull the trigger, you see in the background the damn witch. She's there.
I didn't even notice that.
You didn't see her? She's there. So it's just like they didn't get rid of her. She's still very much alive, and or very not much alive, but very much still powerful and a presence. So yeah, it blew my mind. I was just like, wow, that's terrible. I did not see that coming. I had kind of been lulled into believing that was not going to be the case, that he wasn't going to be involved. And then I assumed the movie was over, but apparently it was not. So Veronica, do you want to tell people about that closing scene?
I mean, you don't really miss anything. The closing scene is just, it's German, at the hospital. He's in his hospital bed.
Finally where he should be.
Where he should be. Really probably after he almost slit his wrists open. But anyway, he's in his hospital bed. Well, actually, it just shows like a picture, backtrack. So the closing scene or extra scene, whatever you want to call it, opens up when we're seeing a young girl like strapped on a bed. There's a priest there, a couple of other men. They're basically doing an exorcism. She's writhing on the bed and, demonic sounds coming out of her. And then the camera pulls back and we realize that it's Ruth watching this video on a laptop. And she's sitting at her father's bedside in the hospital. They don't say anything, but it's just, you just get the sense that they're going to go help this girl. This was the case that the dad was saying, I got this email, the young girl's possessed. They're asking for my help. And initially Ruth tells him, no, Dad, you got to heal. I need a vacation. So that scene just kind of gives you the sense, because they don't say anything, but it just kind of gives you the sense that they're going to continue with this work. And maybe this is going to be their next case.
So you think they're setting up for a sequel then? I don't know. This movie came out
it came out in 2020.
This came out 4 years ago.
Of course, that was pandemic. So
Yeah.
Who knows? There might have been plans that got derailed because of everything that happened in the world after that.
I'd be interested in a sequel for sure. Where would you rate this movie as far as like, I don't know, scale of 1 to 10? How good, how much did you enjoy this movie? Or
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think the jump scares were really good. I think I appreciate that they tried to bring in the Spanish Inquisition into it, but it just felt like that tie-in was kind of nebulous and maybe they could have found something else. And I also thought, because as as they're talking about like the women, the innocent women, they even made a point of saying that the innocent women that were imprisoned by the Inquisition and tortured and killed. And I'm like, well, why are you doing this to these innocent people that are not part of the Inquisition? This was like centuries later. Why are you trying to basically cause all these people to off themselves?
Right. Yeah.
And so there was kind of that, because in reality, the Inquisition was, women were targeted because maybe they were just
Healers.
too outspoken,
Right.
or holistic healers,
Yes.
or maybe they just refused to force themselves into whatever the societal mold of what a woman should be back then. They were just women that didn't want to conform. So they were rebels, basically, is what they were.
Well, and also this was, like, don't forget, like, this is a time when there would be something like babies that die, or failed crops, failed harvests, or things like any kind of thing that couldn't be explained. People were very quick to point the finger at
whoever was other, whoever was different,
they suspected in the community, whoever was marginalized and on the outskirts. So yeah,
so this movie kind of fed into that narrative of like, yes, the witches, they're just evil just because. And so I didn't really like that. I think they could have found some other reason for why this house is haunted. So everything else I would give high marks to.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was a really fun movie. As far as like the tie-in with the witches and stuff, I think if you're gonna touch on that, you almost want a little bit more backstory. You want to give it a little bit more backstory. Still on its own, still a great movie. I think you definitely are going to see remnants of or echoes of movies like Amityville Horror or The Conjuring, Haunting of Hill House, that story. So if you're a fan of those movies, then I think this is right up your alley. I enjoyed it a lot.
Definitely if this director...
And that musical score.
Yeah, I got to go check that out because I don't know. But this director, if he's going to do more in the horror genre...
Has he? Look up real quick. What else has he done?
I would definitely check it out.
While you're looking that up, let me give this quote. This is from one of the resources that we've got for you guys. This is from elcorreo.com. According to Angel Gómez, horror is a very versatile genre. It's easy to combine it with other genres. You can create suspense. You can make people laugh. You could say that horror serves to enhance those flavors. And then it can have a very powerful metaphorical and narrative value, as occurs in films like Hereditary or The Witch. Nowadays, horror films have a deeper interpretation. They are not limited to films centered on speaking of camp horror, they are not limited to films centered on a man with a mask who scares a group of teenagers, although not to detract from that type of film.
It looks like in 2023, he had something called El Hombre del Saco. And also in 2023, there was a TV miniseries, 4 episodes, called Technophobia.
Before we move on to anything else, I do want to, so we talked about, you mentioned the device that they supposedly use on this witch to torture her and punish her for the crime of like speaking blasphemy or whatever it is that they accuse her of. So it did get me. I had the same thought. I kind of wanted to know, like, well, what? Because we don't get a good look at like what happened to her and what is that? What happened to her? What did they do? And so I went to digging, as one does. I'm not here to give anybody like a huge rundown on the Spanish Inquisition, but just a little bit about it. And we've got all these links for you guys linked. Like we said, the Spanish Inquisition, just as a refresher for people, it was one of several inquisitions. There were multiple inquisitions that happened in multiple places in the world, not just Spain. It occurred, these are inquisitions that occurred between the 12th and 19th centuries. And in addition to the term being used for historical events, the word also refers to the tribunal court system used by both the Catholic Church and some Catholic monarchs to root out and punish heretics. Catalonia was a center of witchcraft trials in Europe for more than 300 years, in a region that's, I think, like 53 miles north of Barcelona. There was recently, the reason that this came out is because as recently as like 2 years ago, there was a vote by the parliament in Catalonia to apologize for the more than 700 witches that were condemned in the region over 3 centuries, beginning in 1424, when Catalonia enacted Europe's first law prohibiting witchcraft. This vote kind of issued a posthumous pardon to witches who were executed. Of those 700 people, most of them were women, marginalized women. The gesture was signified as like a breakthrough moment for accountability for centuries of injustice. Local officials there have even renamed several streets in memory of the murdered women. And Catalonia reportedly may soon add the study, this is as of 2 years ago, may soon add the study of witchcraft persecutions to high school curriculum to show students how easily ignorance and rumor can spiral into violence. As far as like some of the torture devices, there's terms like strappado, the rack. I did find a device that kind of seems to do something similar to what they describe in this movie. I'm not going to link this in particular for you people because I don't think anybody needs to know about this device or what it does. Suffice to say, it's called the pear, and it does not go in the mouth. So I will say that, or how it was used in those times, not necessarily in the mouth. But if you look at pictures of it and you look at how they described its usage, you kind of see how like maybe this is what they used for this woman in this movie. For anyone who's like super interested in wanting to know where I'm getting that information, I went to the National Library of Medicine, which is at the National Center for Biotechnology Information. Really interesting stuff. I don't know, like what else did I have? Traditional healers were often, like we said, the ones being accused as being in league with the devil. There was one notorious witch hunter of the period named Joan Mallet. He roamed from village to village, identifying witches on the basis of supposed markings on their backs and shoulders that only he could see. 33 women were hanged based on his testimony, and the Spanish Inquisition eventually charged him with making false accusations, and they burned him at the stake in Barcelona in 1549.
Bastard.
So yeah, it's a little bit about there. I would love to like dive into more about it, but maybe that can be the basis for our future Patreon for people who want that deep dive. Interesting concept. What do you do if you're a house flipper and you buy a house that happens to be haunted? I did not find any such, I'll link a story for you guys out of mirroronline.com. We don't necessarily have time to go into it, but there was a report of a woman out of, I don't know where, I think somewhere in the UK. They bought a house for a certain amount of money. They flipped it. Now the couple fears the ghost of a dead mum is angry. They flipped her home for a quick profit. We'll link that story for you guys to read. It's nice and fun, but we don't have time to get into it. We got to wrap things up because Veronica's got to go join her husband for his birthday.
So a book that I am currently reading, actually I'm almost maybe 2/3 of the way through, that I picked up at the library. It's called The House That Horror Built.
Ooh, fun.
By Christina Henry. It's not really scary. It's more
spooky.
Not even spooky. It's kind of like comedy horror.
Oh, that's fun.
But it's just read. Just a quick fun read. All right. And then just a reminder, if you want to participate in our next book club episode, which will be coming at you the end of August, we are reading Monstrilio by Gerardo Sámano Córdova.
Okay, my friends. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Don't Watch at Night is a Nest production hosted by me, Valerie and Veronica. Editing by me. Music by Omar Chakor. Production support for this episode provided by Lorenzo Villarreal and Alex Street. Listen to new episodes of Don't Watch at Night every other Monday, and don't forget to give us a rate and review. It's the best way to help us grow.